State Commerce. It's Wednesday, January 31st, 9 a.m. We're in conference room 429. This is our first IAC hearing of the year. And for the members and the public, I believe we are being televised on Capital TV. With that, we're going to get started. We have a couple agendas this morning, first at 9 a.m. and then 11 a.m. Since it's the start of a new year, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves, starting with Representative Cachola.
I'm Roman Cachola, representing District 30.
Richard Onishi, District 3.
I'm Isaac, I'm from Manoa.
Representative Takashi Ono from Liliha Nukuanu. Let's get started. Up first, we have House Bill 1618. First up, we have Mr. Peter Lee from the Contractors License Board. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Ono, Vice Chair Choi, members. Peter Lee with the Hawaii Electric part of the Laborers Union and Unionized Contractors. However, I'm here in my capacity as the board member of the Contractors Licensing Board as well as the legislative chair. I'm all for this opportunity to testify on House Bill 1618. With your indulgence, I'm going to go through some aspects of the bill because there's a lot of things. This measure proposes to change the qualifications of each board member. The board strongly opposes this measure for the following reasons. Regarding the new qualifications for the Contractors Licensing Board members, contractors who wish to serve on the board are required to actively engage in the contracting business for 5 years. The proposal is to increase from 5 years to 10 years. The proposal seems excessive, and it's for the board we feel it's unwarranted because licensed contractors already have demonstrated at least 4 years of supervisory experience to qualify for a license. So with the 4 years and the current 5 years, they already have a minimum of 9 years. The proposal is to increase it to at least 14 years. Furthermore, increasing the number of years to be actively engaged in contracting business will reduce the number of qualified contractors that are eligible to serve on the board. Board members are volunteers who give up their time and expertise. Among other things, review applications, respond to scope of work inquiries, and amend administrative rules. Currently, it's difficult to find contractors who have the ability to take off time from work, as many as 3 days a month to conduct board business. Second requirement, new requirement for specialty contractor board members. This bill proposes to restrict specialty contractors from holding a general contractor's license. The restriction, we feel, is unreasonable and unnecessary. More and more, the board is finding that project owners, including the state and county projects, are requiring a general contractor's license to bid on specialty projects. Although a specialty contractor's license is sufficient for the project, many project owners seem to want a general contractor on the project. In response to this, many specialty contractors have obtained or are actually in the process of obtaining their general contractor's license. Because many specialty contractors have other types of contractor's licenses, including general contractor's licenses, it is unreasonable to require specialty contractor board members to only have specialty contractor's licenses. Furthermore, there is no proof that a specialty contractor on the board who also holds a general contractor's license has been biased in favor of a general contractor or has harmed the public. All board members, regardless of the type of contractor's license they hold, are committed to protecting the public and have not evidenced any bias towards either specialty or general contractors. Board members are neutral in their decision-making because they wear their consumer hats during the meetings. Number 3, requirements for public board members. In addition to the above changes, this bill also prohibits public members from having any family member who is a licensee or having any financial interest in the business of any licensee on the board. The purpose of this amendment is unclear and seems excessive in light of the conflict of interest conflict of interest provisions in the state ethics code. Number 4, specifying duty of the board and reference to the definitions of various contractor classifications. The new proposed sections E and F are not necessary because HRS 444-4 and HAR 16-77-2 set forth in the primary intent of the board as protecting the public health, safety, and general welfare of the public. Lastly, HRS 444 does define contractor license classification. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Up next, we have
The Iron Workers Stabilization Fund. Looks like Arnold Wong. In support, Tim Lyons. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Members of the committee, I'm Tim Lyons with the Subcontractors Association. The Subcontractors Association represents 9 separate and distinct subcontracting organizations, and we are opposed to this bill, particularly the provision that would prohibit a member of the board from holding a B license if they're a specialty contractor and being seated as a member of the board. The fact is that there are many specialty contractors who happen to also hold a B license. They have done this as a matter of convenience in order to be able to bid on certain jobs. Oftentimes, a job may come out that may involve 90% of a particular specialty craft and 10% of other miscellaneous work. And unless they hold that B license, they cannot bid on the job. So it's a matter of expediency, and in order to gain their market share, they'll get their B license, be able to bid on that job, list themselves as one of the specialties, and be able to do that. There have been many subs that happen to have a B license that have served on the board. We have absolutely no evidence of that being a problem in the past and see no reason for that change. Based on that, we would oppose the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the Hawaii Laborers Employers Cooperation and Education Trust. In opposition. We have some testimony, late testimony from the General Contractors Association of Hawaii. Shannon Alibado. In opposition. We have testimony from the Department of Attorney General. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Ono. Good morning, Vice Chair Choi and committee members, staff. Krishna Jairam, Deputy Attorney General. Thank you for having me here to testify. Chair, with your permission, I could summarize our testimony.
Yes, please.
Sir. So Bill 1618 creates a 5-year durational residency requirement. This durational residency requirement would apply to the 10 contractor members as well as the 3 public members. We would urge caution anytime the legislature considers a durational residency requirement because it creates sort of an artificial class. And if challenged, there's a couple of tests that could be applied. And this time, we're not quite sure which tests would apply, but it would either be reasonable basis or a compelling state interest would be necessary to allow for a durational residency requirement. A couple of things we'd ask the committee to consider. One is that the longer the residency requirement, the more challenging it is to defend it. 2, as the statutes currently are, elected officials have a 3-year residency requirement, and directors and deputy directors of state agencies have a 1-year residency requirement. So it presents an additional challenge to say that to articulate why members of this board should have a 5-year residency requirement. Third, and this is not included in testimony because we haven't been able to confirm it all, but in the professional licensing world of the boards, none of the other boards have durational license requirements, so this would be unique in that sense, we believe. So for those reasons, we'd recommend either deleting the durational residency requirement or shortening it and including in the legislative history our reasons for having it. And Chair, I'm here for any questions if the committee might have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have the BIA with testimony in opposition, and Pacific Resource Partnership with testimony in opposition. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on House Bill 1618? Members, questions? Thank you. Next up, we have House Bill 1620. First up, we have Mr. Gordon-Ito with the Insurance Division. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Vice Chair, all members of the committee. Gordon-Ito testifying on behalf of Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. The department opposes this bill, which is a companion to Senate Bill 2243, and provides the following comments. The bill will require insurers to pay additional costs associated with the use of original equipment manufacturer, also known as OEM, parts for motor vehicle body repair work if the insurer chooses an original equipment part. The original part is available, and the vehicle manufacturer has recommended the use of the original parts in repair. Currently under HRS 43110C 313.6, an insured may authorize a repair provider to use a like kind and quality part of equal or better value quality than the original, if available, or an original part for bodywork repair. The insurer guarantees a like kind and quality part for at least 90 days for the same guarantee period as the original OEM manufactured part, which is whatever is longer. If an aftermarket body part is available, the insurer who chooses installation of an OEM part must pay the difference in cost between the aftermarket part and original part, unless the original parts are required by the vehicle manufacturer's warranty under 431.313.6. The difference in price between original and aftermarket parts can be considerable. Given the specific safeguard codified in 10C 313.6, the proposed change lacks an obvious benefit to consumers. Insurers who pay higher insurance premiums since accidents routinely involve damage to motor vehicle parts, and original body parts cost significantly more than the OEM, aftermarket parts. Further, changing the statutory requirement from manufacturer required parts to manufacturer recommended parts would mean the insurer could cover the cost of all original parts, since it's likely all manufacturers would recommend the use of higher priced original equipment as replacements. The insurer mandates to cover the cost of all original parts, which is significantly more expensive than aftermarket parts, will put upward pressure on consumer premium rates. Finally, these higher costs will likely result in higher number of vehicles deemed total loss, simply because insurers will conclude it's cheaper to total a vehicle than repair it with original equipment parts. And thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'll be glad to answer your questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Up next, we have Ray Colas with LKQ Corporation. And for those folks in the public, we do have your testimony. You're welcome to read it to us as well, but we do have it in our files and I reviewed it.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Ray Coles, and I'm the Government Affairs Representative for LKQ Corporation. And we're here in opposition to House Bill 1620. And some of the concerns that we have is really with the one word that was added to the bill, which states parts that are recommended have to be used for insurance-paid repairs. Now, no bill has ever been introduced in any other state with similar language. And it's very apparent that this is a bill that will attempt to increase the market share of the car companies. Today, the car companies own 64% of the market share, while the salvage industry, the remanufacturing industry, and the aftermarket industry owns the difference. Now, you have to ask yourself, if you're operating a business and you're in the business of selling a consumer product or services, would you ever recommend the services or product of your competitor? The answer is probably no. And that's the concern we have with this bill. It essentially would legislate a monopoly, and that's the concern we have. We're in the business of providing a lower cost alternative for consumers. So if you state that the insurance companies must pay the difference, then you eliminate the only benefit to our industry. We also prevent vehicles from being declared a total loss. Because we provide a lower cost alternative, we keep the calculation below the total loss threshold so that people can actually repair their vehicles as opposed to having them declare total. We also stimulate competition. just like with any other industry. Whenever there's an alternative, well, it tends to lower the prices of the other competitors. And we're actually responsible for the car companies in, I guess, investing in programs to where they will price match some of the aftermarket parts in order to sell more of their own products. And that only exists today because of the competition that we provide. Now, we've been battling this issue for over 3 decades, and the Insurance Institute of Highway and Safety has time and time again, and I will say this is 3 different decades, have crash tested motor vehicles with aftermarket parts outfitted on these vehicles, and have come to the same conclusion, that many of these parts are irrelevant to safety. And within this bill, it states that there is a lawsuit which proves that, that has been filed where aftermarket parts have found to fail. Well, we also challenge that and ask that this lawsuit be provided because we're absolutely unaware of any lawsuit that has been filed where the use of aftermarket parts has caused accident, injury, or death. Parts are not crash tested. Vehicles are crash tested. And what determines whether or not those parts operate in uniform with the structural integrity of the vehicle is the level of injuries or G-forces that occupant may or may not have sustained. That's what determines whether or not these parts are safe. Now, along with these crash tests that have been conducted in the past, these vehicles have all fallen under the good rating under IIHS standards, and not standards that some of the proponents of these bills may have created on their own. Now, again, time and time again, we find ourselves here having to defend our industry, and it's the same outcome every single time. Passing this bill would legislate a monopoly, and we're asked that you vote no.
Thank you. Up next, we have Mr. Van Takamoto from the Automotive Body Painting Association of Hawaii. Good morning.
Hello, Chairman Ono and Vice Chair Choi and members of the committee.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have submitted written testimony, but I'd like to address some of the issues that were already brought up. This bill does not prohibit the use of aftermarket parts by an insurer or anyone else. Basically, all it's doing is not allowing the transfer of the increased cost to the insured or the claimant when they do choose to use aftermarket parts. The other thing is that aftermarket parts, for us in the industry, we're there every day. When we get an aftermarket parts, there's a company called Kappa that is supposed to have certified these parts. But I have never seen any engineering data on the crash safety worthiness of these parts. So the bill doesn't prohibit aftermarket parts. They can still compete, and the marketplace stays the way it is, basically, in my opinion, when I'm looking at it from the industry. Of course, there are other opinions, but I don't think it's going to actually change that. As far as insurance premiums and the cost to the public, I don't see that also in our industry because there are a lot of different insurance companies in the state of Hawaii, and most of the local insurance companies do not pass this cost on to the driving public in Hawaii. It's mainly a couple large mainland national insurers that are using this practice of passing that cost on. So at this point, when you're talking about like, kind, and quality, it's easy to determine that, for example, antifreeze is the same from one brand to the other brand because you can chemically test it. What we're saying basically is because of the changes in the car and the design, these cars today, they're designed as a moving safety system. When you change pieces in the safety system, we question whether it's going to still operate. Airbags timing is critical to hundredths of a second before it can either cause injury or maybe even death. And that's what we're concerned about. We don't feel that the cost should be passed on to the insured. We don't feel that it's going to increase anything in the insurance industry because there are already local insurance companies that are competing in the market that do not require their insureds or claimants to pay this additional cost. A lot of it I have in my testimony already, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm here representing the Automotive Body and Painting Association of Hawaii. We are the longest ongoing trade association in the state. We've been around a long time. We've always been concerned about safety, consumer safety, and that's why we're here to testify, because we feel that this is a safety item and that consumers in Hawaii should not be allowed to pay additional by certain insurance companies. I think the playing field just should be left even. An insurer can, if they want to specify in their policy that they will use aftermarket parts and justify it within their contract. We don't need this law that it can be used as an excuse when communicating to consumers that, well, it's the law, it's Hawaii's law. And that's why you have to pay the difference. So that's why we feel this should be changed. As far as recommended versus required, when a person buys a vehicle from a manufacturer, the manufacturer no longer owns it. So they never use the word required. The word is recommended that's used. If it's recommended to use a certain weight oil and you do not use the recommended oil and you take that car back for under warranty, you could have avoided your warranty. But that's your choice. It's the consumer's choice. It's his car. So if they want to put aftermarket parts on the car, that's fine, and they can do it. This doesn't prohibit any of that. So and that's kind of sums it up, I think, as far as what our industry is concerned with.
Thank you. Up next, we have the property casualty insurers, the Vice President, Mr. Mark Seknin.
Annie McCullough, on behalf of PCI, will stand on our written testimony in opposition.
Thank you. Rick Tsuchimura from State Farm. Good morning.
Morning. You have my testimony. I won't reiterate it, but I did want to respond to a couple statements that were made just before me. The first is, it is true, you can put things into an insurance policy because it's a contract and you can constrain what coverage is included. But let me tell you why State Farm is here. Our concern is not for all of us here who are making a living and having a living wage. We're concerned about our insureds who are on the cusp of being uninsured. And we're concerned that raising this cost, and it's not just your collision coverage we're talking about, it's raising the cost of your liability coverage, which all of us have to keep. So if you raise that liability coverage and the cost of that liability coverage, we're concerned that those individuals who are on the cusp of being uninsured might choose food and shelter versus paying for an insurance policy that they may not have to call upon. If it's being driven by a property damage increase, then that's even more concerning on our side. To Mr. Takemoto's point, right now, at least on a State Farm policy, we basically say that we will warranty whatever parts we put in there, for the same length of time as the original part. If the customer wants to pay for an original equipment part, they are not prohibited from paying for it. What this bill does is say, we can't charge for that cost if we are forced to pay for it, which means that we've got to put it all into everybody's rates. And so you don't have a choice in this process. We're just going to raise everybody's costs. Right now, that increased cost is limited to that universe of people who want an original equipment part. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear and on the table. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have the Hawaii Insurers Council, Mr. Michael Snoy.
Good morning. We stand on our written testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Prism Group, Mr. Mike Yang.
Just leave my written testimony in there.
We have that, yep. Comments.
I hope so.
Thank you. Tony Group Collision Center, Brandy Lee.
No.
In support.
Is that, I think that's putting that testimony.
Are you here, Brandy? No, okay. They are in support. Tony Group Collision Center, Sabrina Della Rama.
Here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Ono and committee. My name is Sabrina Della Rama. I am the president of the Automotive Body and Paint Association of Hawaii, as well as the manager of Tony Group Collision Center. I've been in this industry for 29 years, and I've seen the dramatic changes over time, from vehicles having no airbags to vehicle having braking system today, to vehicles starting to drive on its own. I am in strong support of this bill, and the reason for it is for consumer safety. I am here for explaining why consumers should have a choice in what they put their families in. Again, as Mr. Takimoto had explained, vehicles are built today as one piece of a safety system. And airbag timing has to be precise. And that's why if you check on testing of vehicles, the manufacturer has 5-star crash rating, and that's why they have such a thing as 5-star crash rating, because they crash test the vehicles as a whole safety system. And if you take one part off, we don't know the timing, if it will affect it or not. And the current bill, what's happened is the insurance industry has been able to tell the consumers that it's law, and that's how they've been using the current bill. However, with the new bill, it gives consumer a choice. And again, it can be written in the policy, but when you're putting the cost on an innocent claimant that does not have a policy and doesn't have a choice, because the insurance industry says, well, it's the law, then that, to me, is not the right way to use the law to a consumer that is an innocent victim. They should be able to choose by the way that the manufacturer crash tested their car, because they want their 5 crash star rating back on that car. So if they can show that the manufacturer recommends certain parts to be used on their car to have it back to that 5 car crash rating, they should have that choice, and it shouldn't be where they have to pay out of pocket. Now, if you're an insurer, you have no choice. You have to go by what your policy states or pay the difference. But the current law actually is a higher cost in premium right now, because they hide the cost in having the insured or the claimant pay the difference. So we may not pay it up front, but if you choose to use an OEM parts for the safety of the vehicle, you are paying higher premium, because you're individually going to have to pay higher for that choice that you're going to have to make. There is a lot of things that's going on in the industry, and there's a lot of changes that's happening. And I think that this bill makes it a fair playing field, because the local insurance carriers does not use aftermarket parts. They have not, and they are competitive. You have the $27 go low. So how can they compete with these other insurance carriers that use and pushes aftermarket parts? So it would not raise premiums, because the vehicles today is also built for safety. And what happens is, before the premiums are outrageous because individuals are getting more hurt in these other cars, whereas today is safer. So we have less cost in injuries. And so that's why I'm in support of HB 1620. Thank you.
Thank you. Auto Body Hawaii, Deo Matsumoto. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I come from the Big Island, and we're on the Kona side. We tend to get the more late model cars, the high end cars. So we find ourselves in this predicament of learning and repairing at the same time, far ahead and advance of other competition, other people. I am definitely in support of HB 1620. I've already written my written testimony. Safety is a huge factor, and safety, and I don't care who says what as far as financial things going. The safety and well-being of Hawaii's people should not be jeopardized, no matter what, no matter the cost. The cost is the cost, and people are going to just have to deal with it. And there is no proven fact that there is going to be an increase in cost to the rates, because there is already written proof that the use of aftermarket parts will increase a second collision. Do you understand that? Okay, so if there is more damages sustained on a second collision, doesn't that also increase the liability side also? So it's kind of a mixed bag here. I can talk like a lot of, I'm very technical on these cars, and if I talk on exactly how these vehicles operate, everybody in this room will get lost. And all I can tell you to simplify things, I'll give you 2 examples. The dealerships do an awesome job repairing the mechanical end of the vehicle. They have almost no clue when it comes to the collision side of the vehicle. I promise you that. We've already ran into several scenarios where we asked the dealerships for assistance in recalibrating and resetting these radars and lasers and things like that. They don't even have the manpower, they don't have the education, the training, and some of them don't even have the equipment to do this kind of things. A simple fact of changing your windshield can affect your frontal impact safety systems. So it becomes very technical at this point. So like I said, even the dealerships cannot comply or put the vehicles back into the so-called pre-accident conditions. The other part too is if you take a look at this current law, it's flawed in many ways, and I'm going to just give you a quick and down-to-earth view here. One is if I was to hit your car, you become the claimant, right? That means when it goes to the insurance companies and they write their estimate, do whatever they want to do to get the claim processed, that means that insurance company has the choice to use aftermarket parts on your car. Are you okay with that? Say you bought a brand new car, your brand new Mercedes, Volkswagen, whatever it is, and I hit your car. You're okay with aftermarket parts, imitation parts on your car. Are you okay with it? Tell me honestly, are you okay with it?
Well, we're the ones who'll ask you questions.
Yeah, I wouldn't, and I'm sure everybody in the back wouldn't also. It's kind of like this. When you're repairing a car, you don't use repair instructions or assembly instructions from a Lego kit to repair a highly technical car. Sorry, Brandon, help me out. The F-150 today's F-150, right, has the most computer line items in today's lines of codes, lines of codes. It has more computer lines of codes than what is that, 747? Yeah, than an airplane, than the Apple computer. And what is the other one? There's another thing. All put together, that one F-150 has that many computer things going on. So it becomes very technical. By applying one aftermarket part, it changes the whole feature of that vehicle, how that car was originally built. When we repair a car, we're not into redesigning the car. We follow the instructions outlined by the vehicle manufacturer, and that's how the car needs to be repaired. And part of that is using the OEM parts, because no vehicle manufacturer in today's world authorizes the use of a non-OEM part. Thank you. Any questions?
No. We'll do the questions after.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Musgrove.
Yeah, thank you for coming from Kona.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Auto Care Association, Mr. Tom Tucker. In opposition, Mascot Auto Parts. In opposition, SIGS Collision Center, Mr. Dan Dutra. In opposition, NAMIC, Mr. Christian John Radich. In opposition, Automotive Recyclers Association, Michael Wilson. In opposition, Rosanna Matu. In support, Stan Mull. In support, Richard Doyle. In support, we also have some late testimony, Mr. David Rolfe from the Hawaii Auto Dealers Association. In support, Ed Wagner. In support. Is there anyone else out there wishing to testify on House Bill 1620? Okay, why don't we start with you, and then we'll come on up. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Can you?
Vice Chair Choi. I'm Tim Dayton. I'm General Manager for Geico. I've been in that job for 30 years. I did submit my testimony, and it was timely.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's all right. You know, this law was passed as part of the reforms for auto insurance in the 90s. When I came to Hawaii, Hawaii had the second highest insurance rates in the entire country, trailing only New Jersey. And it was the #1 public concern with the legislature until reform started in '92 and continued over several sessions, the last one being in 1998. Today, the cost of auto insurance in Hawaii, if you compare it to the rest of the country, is 25th highest, so right in the middle. So, you know, the reforms that were passed, including this one, and the insurance industry response had the desired effect. I will absolutely tell you, and I have the expertise, that if this bill passes, two things. Number one, it will eliminate the aftermarket parts and use in Hawaii. And second, insurance premiums will go up dramatically. Many people have a perception that the bulk of claims payments and losses are paid to attorneys, doctors, chiropractors, injured claimants. That's not correct. That's an incorrect perception. Nearly 2/3 of all lost dollars are paid for vehicles, either repair or a total loss replacement. This will have a huge impact. You know, the OEM market has existed as a monopoly for many years, going back to when I started with Geico in the 70s. They price their product, their parts, extremely high, and only the competition that comes from aftermarket parts throughout the country has modified that somewhat. MSRP, manufacturer suggested retail price, pretty much is the price that's charged for an OEM part, pricing set by a monopoly throughout the country. Actually, the same pricing exists in 49 states. One state has a different pricing model. It happens to be Hawaii. In Hawaii, the cost of an OEM part is MSRP plus a huge markup. That markup ranges from 25 to 35%. There is no justification for that. If you look on my letterhead, you will see I manage 2 states, the 2 remote states. There's no justification. Alaska doesn't charge that price. So, you know, the reason that the shops are saying, well, you know, they're making us put it on the car, the customer has a choice of paying the difference for the OEM. They don't because it's huge. There's a reason that they don't. You know, in listening to the testimony that was submitted, it seems like those in support, pretty much all shops. I heard one consumer's name in that. You know, our customers, Geico insures more than 1/3 of the families that have car insurance in Hawaii. I have no complaints on record that I could find related to this issue. Our customers aren't complaining. I didn't hear Commissioner Ito say that he has consumer complaints on this issue. And I certainly haven't seen a part that failed and was a safety issue in a subsequent accident. Now, we don't have the entire market, but we've got a pretty representative sample. These things aren't coming because they don't exist. Now, the aftermarket part, it says they should be equal quality, equal or better quality. So if you look on my testimony, I had 3 exhibits attached. We actually found a recent repair of a 2017 Jeep Cherokee that we repaired here, and we found a similar 2017 Cherokee in Alaska. Those 2 repairs had 8 parts in common. The last 2 pages show the summary page of the estimate for Hawaii, which is Exhibit B, and a 25% markup over MSRP. If you even consider passing this, and I hope you don't, at least put in that it is required that these parts be available at a rate no higher than MSRP. There is absolutely zero justification. One of the dealerships testified. If you ask questions, maybe she can explain the basis as to why an OEM part costs 25 to 35% more in Hawaii than it does in Alaska and the other 48 states. So the preamble to the changes of the statute says these parts aren't safe, they're not warranted. Look at the last 2 pages. On every estimate that Geico writes in the entire country, we have the language at the bottom that says lifetime warranty. As long as you own the car, we warranty any aftermarket part we put on the vehicle. So this will significantly affect pricing of automobile insurance in Hawaii. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Dayton. And we did receive your testimony on time. I apologize for that. Similarly, we also received testimony on time from Mr. Brandon Okahara from Oka's Auto Body. I apologize for looking over that. Come on up. Good morning.
Morning, Chairman Ono, representatives. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak today in support of House Bill 1620. I'm one of the co-owners of Oka's Auto Body in Waipahu. We're a family business, second-generation owner. I run the shop with my brother, Kyle, my sister, Marlo. My mom and dad are retired. They are currently planning their year's worth of vacation, so I'm here to support this bill. So, back when I think it was HRS 431C 313.6 came around, was in the mid 90s, and initially it was about like-kind quality parts. That terminology doesn't really apply anymore to what happens when a vehicle is in a collision today. The technology has changed significantly, and whereas before, a bumper was a bumper. It was primarily almost like an aesthetic piece. Now with the vehicles that are designed and on the road today, like some of my counterparts have said, they're designed as moving safety systems. And it's uncertain if you replace one of the parts with something that is potentially not of the same quality, if the system is going to react the same way. I'm in no way saying that aftermarket parts do not have a market here in Hawaii, because they absolutely do. They absolutely do. However, my concern is that if that cost gets passed on to the owner, that's where my concern comes about, is if they request that they use a genuine part because they've got a 2017 Lexus or even a 2014 Ford or whatever it may be. It should be the owner's choice, and they should have the decision of if they want the OEM part or not. Excuse me. Okay. So, in summary, again, it's not that we're saying that aftermarket parts do not have a place in our industry. It just should not be imposed on somebody if that is not what they signed up for in their own insurance policy. So I think that pretty much sums it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, I also have on-time testimony from Mr. Roland Kuroda from Kuroda's Auto Body in support. And I think there's a gentleman. Why don't you come on up? Then we'll get a couple more after that. Yep. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, fellow committee members. Excuse me. My name is Kevin Rathbun. I'm here as a consumer after reviewing this bill. As a consumer, I think we should have the choice. I own 3 late model vehicles. A couple, 3 years ago, one of my vehicles was hit. The aftermarket parts that came in did not fit properly, causing a delay in my repair of over a week. Recently, a few months ago, my wife's car was hit in a parking lot, and I was very specific with my insurer that I wanted to have original equipment replaced. It was quite a battle. I was not told that it was a choice for me to pay the difference either, by the way. Don't know if that was just an isolated, but having an expensive car, I expect to have the parts on there that the manufacturer suggests that we have. If there's a cost incurred, then that should be a disclosure to us and give us that choice. And currently, it's very muddy, to say it bluntly, on how to get your car repaired. Most people don't read their whole policy, but I think that allowing the consumer to have the parts on the car that were suggested or recommended is something that we should have that choice for.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
For the record, you're in support.
I am in strong support of the bill.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
You can join us and state your name and your position on the bill and your thoughts.
Good morning. My name is Eileen Tan. I'm in support of the bill. I am a consumer as well. And my husband and I both sat down to find a good, comfortable family car. Something that's safe, that can hold our children and our grandchildren. So we did. We purchased a car. We went for a 5-star safety rating. And in November 2016, someone hit us and ran. So we were forced to repair our vehicle on our own. The front bumper was damaged and had to be repaired. When we called the insurance company, they came down, they gave us a check and said to go ahead and get it fixed. While looking over the paperwork that they gave us, we realized that they're putting aftermarket parts on our car. We did some research. My husband and I sat down and we went through everything on this aftermarket, and we also called our insurance company to let them know that the aftermarket parts is not tested to see if our safety rating for that bumper. So what happens is if we come close to hitting anyone, it'll send out a signal. If someone comes close to hit us, it sends out a signal. And this aftermarket part cannot guarantee us that that safety that we purchased will be working. So we went back to the insurance company and asked them, we would like to have what the manufacturers is telling us that we should get, what we should put on our car, so that we do have the rating that we had purchased. All we wanted was to get what we purchased. And they told us we could do so, but it would come out of our pockets, even though we had not been the one, to damage our car. So we went back to the insurance company and we asked them, no, we want what the manufacturer is asking us to use on our car so that we have that safety for our family, for my grandchildren, for my children. And they said, yes, you may, as long as you pay for it yourself. So I had to go to court. I had to take off of work, which is 2 8-hour days out of my paycheck, so that I could fight the insurance company, just so that I can get the difference, so that I can have my safety car that we purchased. And we did win in court, and I got them to pay me the difference. But I still left out 2 days of my hard days of work, my income, because they didn't want to provide what we thought as consumers is part of our insurance. They did not have our back. And that's why we are in strong support of this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure, House Bill 1620? Members, any questions?
Okay.
Representative Onishi.
Yes, Commissioner Ito. Hi, thank you for coming.
Sure.
My first question is, are you aware of any lawsuits regarding aftermarket parts being, I guess, an issue in terms of being an issue?
Yeah.
So at least at the insurance division, we're not aware of it. You know what I mean? But we don't engage in any lawsuits. I mean, that's beyond our jurisdiction. So there might be lawsuits out there, or disputes like the prior consumer had mentioned in terms of the cost difference. But we get complaints, but we don't track lawsuits that's filed.
Well, I would assume that you would get a complaint about them having to sue in order to get what they feel is in the insurance policy.
Well, again, the current law allows for aftermarket parts, and if the manufacturer requires it, for warranty purposes, then the difference is covered under the policy. So that's the current state of the law. So as far as the complaints in detail as to whether they, in their complaint, said they had to file a lawsuit, I'm not aware of that. I mean, there might be, but.
So what you're saying is that if a vehicle is still under warranty and the manufacturer requires to uphold that warranty, the original part, then the insurance company should be required to provide that part as part of maintaining the warranty?
Yeah, I mean, then that's where the cost difference, there's no, where the consumer has to pay more. The concern we have with this bill more so is the changing the required to recommended, because then it would be simple for any car manufacturer to just recommend all parts in an accident be original equipment.
So if say for example I just got a car and I got into an accident and my insurance company refused to put in original or manufacturer recommended parts, I could go to you and you would go to the insurance company and say, hey, wait a minute, our Hawaii law says in order to protect the warranty on that vehicle, you are required to put in warranted parts.
Original equipment parts, right, if it's required.
So you would do that, though?
Yeah.
To ensure that
we enforce what the current law is.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Vice Chair.
I forgot your name. Could you come up here? What was your name again?
Eileen Tan.
You said that you took your case to court.
Oh, excuse me. Yes.
And you won.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember what the reason the judge gave for you winning?
In the conversation that the judge had with us, there was no option for me from the insurance company to have a premium insurance in which it would cover me to get all regular parts.
The option was not available.
No option is available. So when she had asked if I had the choice, if I would pay the premium to get, make sure that I am fully covered, would I do it? Of course, that's what I purchased a car for.
Did the judge use the term adhesion at all?
I'm sorry, sir, I don't recall.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just curious. So basically, a judge said you didn't have a choice in the contract. You didn't write the contract. Therefore, the interpretation of the contract favored you.
Correct.
Okay.
And also the fact that they couldn't guarantee me that the aftermarket part would do what the manufacturer recommended part would do.
Okay, so it was more of a contract type of decision then.
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alicia. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
I got a follow-up question. Can I ask you a follow-up?
Sure.
So how old was your car?
My car is a 2013 Dodge Durango.
And when did you have this accident?
We had this last year, November. We were at a stoplight and someone backed up into us.
Was it still under warranty, manufacturer warranty?
It was under an extended warranty, but during the time of the accident, yes.
Okay. So, okay, thank you.
Yes.
So when time permits, I have a follow-up to
Go ahead.
Mr. Ito.
Go ahead. Raponishi.
So, Commissioner Ito, so if a vehicle is under extended warranty or a dealership or manufacturer extended warranty, would the Hawaii law provision for the recommended manufacturers or required by the vehicle manufacturer's warranty still apply to covering the costs for original parts? Or would your interpretation?
I think we would have to look at the extension of the warranty as to whether it falls under the original manufacturers, or because the extended warranty could be a third-party warranty that you purchase. So that's something I think we would have to look specifically to see whether the law applies or not on the requirement for original equipment.
So I would have thought that this particular issue for car owners would be, a relatively frequent issue that comes up, especially with new cars or cars under warranty. So these issues have never come up at the insurance.
I wouldn't say it hadn't come up. I'm sure from time to time we get complaints about it. But when we get complaints, we look at really the law and to see whether there's a violation of the law or not, whether the consumer is entitled to get OEM without paying additional costs, or whether it's outside the scope of the law.
So when you have these complaints and you do an investigation and you say, well, in this particular case, the insurer should have paid for original or manufacturer required parts, do you send out any kind of notice to other insurers to say, hey, this is to reiterate the Hawaii law that if it is under manufacturer warranty, that you are required to provide warranted parts, and unless it is, a third-party warranty or whatever the situation might be where it doesn't apply.
Yeah, so I can say that I haven't sent out a commissioner's memo to the insurers, but when we do get complaints, we, our process is we send the complaint to the insurer, allow for them to response, and then we'll look at all the information and determine whether there's a violation of law or not, and then we either fine or take appropriate action against the insurer if there's a violation, or if there isn't, then we essentially close the case. So the insurers are well aware of the requirements of the law.
That one.
Yeah, I think the dispute right now, I wouldn't say the dispute, but as some of the testifiers have said, in the past when there wasn't like sensors in the car, and it's getting more complex, right? In terms of the sensor was airbag sensors initially, now it's anti-collision sensors as more thing. So there is a safety issue. The question is really, I think, on cost and who should bear the burden, because of the increase of sensors in the bumpers and other things. My suggestion to the car manufacturers is take it out of the bumpers and put it someplace where, in a fender bender situation, the sensors are not damaged.
Okay.
And so that's where I think the policy decision is whether you're going to require increased costs across the board to pay for repairs of original equipment. Or we're going to keep the law as currently provides.
Okay, well, my concern is that we have a law in place that protects vehicle owners who have a vehicle that's warranted by the manufacturer. And in this situation, where they're not getting what the law says they should be getting, and they have to then use other means where, to me, part of the requirement of the insurance commissioner is to look at the protection of the consumer. And, if this case comes around or you do an investigation, I don't see the problem with reminding insurers that, hey, this is the Hawaii law. And we had a case where this was violated, we feel it was violated, and we're just reminding you that this is a Hawaii law, and please adhere to the Hawaii law.
Again, we can send out a memo to all insurer, and believe me, we take any complaint serious, and we take appropriate action.
Well, I understand you take appropriate action on that particular claim or that particular inquiry, but I mean, you know, this law deals with the whole industry, and not just the insurance industry, but the repair and the consumers. So again, you know, I don't see why, you know, we're fighting this battle of insurers not fulfilling, or part of the battle, not fulfilling the requirement by law, and now we want to change the law to make it even further open, which now may affect insurance premiums. You know,
I can assure you that within the context of the current law, we're very strict on making sure that the law is complied with. So be assured that the insurance division takes this seriously. And if there's a violation of law as the law currently written, we take appropriate action against insurers. So it's really not a situation where if it's required and it's under the warranty that they're not being covered. I mean, there's the issue of extended warranty that we would have to look at, but we are enforcing the law. It's a question of whether we're going to change the current reimbursement within the context of the law. Because again, there has been a change, and I mean, safety is a concern, but on the other hand, when you talk about the sensors and the electronics in the bumpers, that's really what's putting upward pressure on auto insurance rates, on motor vehicle insurance rates, because where in the past to fix a bumper it might be a few $100s, now to fix a bumper with the sensors could be thousands of dollars, and so the request from insurers to increase rates are starting because, in part, there's the increased property damage claims because of that sensor issue. So it's really a policy decision on what do we do.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chair.
Representative Woodson.
Commissioner, if you could please stay, and also if I may call, I think David from Geico. Thank you. Tim Dayton. Tim Dayton. Thank you both for being here. I guess this is actually a very robust conversation about quality, actual or perceived, and pricing. And there's always a natural tension, market tension between the two, I would argue. I'm just trying to get a better feel for actually how much insurance rates would go up if, in fact, this policy were to be put into place. And then as a follow-up question to you, Commissioner, if you have a better sense of how many instances in which this particular circumstance and where a consumer wanted a original part and was denied, if you have those numbers anywhere in your office, or if you can provide them to us. So first for you, sir.
Okay, I can't give you an exact answer if you're asking me for off the top of my head opinion. Part of that would depend on whether the local dealerships, without any competition, would increase this unique Hawaii markup. Currently, it's 25 to 35% of MSRP. But with no competition, it could be 50, 75%.
Okay, but you're saying that you've been in the industry for 30 plus years, so you should be able to provide some sort of pro forma range as to how much it will go up or not.
If I was going to provide you a range, roughly 60% of our 60-some% of our premiums are related to car repair as opposed to the medical and the bodily injury liability and other coverages. So that's 60%, I would guess, over a period of a couple years. We're probably looking at increasing that, if I had to guess, 15 to 20%. But as the Commissioner noted, prices are going up regardless. So this is not a vacuum. He's getting requests for rate increase, and this is not unique to Hawaii. You know, as one of the gentlemen started talking about all the complexities of repair and the vehicles today, You know, those things are great. I mean, the vehicles today are safer, they're more enjoyable, all of that. They're also a lot more expensive. And the cost to repair them, as the shop people noted, is going up. So, you know, we're not talking about something in a vacuum. No, it's never a vacuum. We would have to project, based on the change in the law, you know, what the impact would be. I mean, it's hard. You make rates prospectively. And we would have to project, okay, based on this is what's going to happen. So I guess if I had to pick one answer to your question, I'm a little uncomfortable answering it, but I would say this change alone over a period of time, 10% of the total premium. And that's a guess.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner?
So we'll go back and look at the complaints we receive on the motor vehicle and see the further breakdown. I mean, we have that ability to do that, so we'll provide the additional detail.
And when can you get that to us by?
Probably within 1 or 2 days.
Okay.
Or if they don't have it or can't run it in detail on the report, then they'll have to go complaint by complaint. We receive in total about 500 complaints a year across all lines of insurance.
Okay, if you could submit it to the committee so we can pass it.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, any other further questions? If not, I'd like to ask some questions to Van. Van, thank you for joining us in this robust discussion.
Glad to be here.
There are two questions in my mind. First one is about the safety, and the second one is about the cost, as I just mentioned. I wanted to see if you just want to end with any final thoughts. Of course, it's mentioned in the testimony, there's a Certified Automotive Parts Association, CAPA, and there's the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety, IIHS, both of which somehow allow these aftermarket parts or non-OEM parts. Do you still believe that they're unsafe? And then second of all, do you have any thoughts on a rise in insurance costs? And is that worth it for people to get OEM parts by paying that extra premium?
I think that the reasoning that the premiums are going to go up is basically a good counter argument to pass, on this bill. However, if you just look at when they say repair costs are 60%, when you look at that 60%, what percent of the 60% deal with that 1 or 2 aftermarket parts that are on the car? It's very, very small, because we could have $10,000 in parts on a repair, and that one aftermarket part could be the $300 part. Most of the expensive parts are in the inner components that nobody can copy anyway. So what we find is that parts that are inside the car are a lot more expensive. And maybe it's because they're manufactured. We have smart headlights now that have to turn and things like that. So no, I don't think it's going to go up. I did read a study a while back that actually somebody had actually tried to calculate this, what percentage are aftermarket parts, and if they did increase by the 10 or 15% that they would have, that it increased to OEM. I think the number was $25 on a collision claim, a collision policy, not the property damage, which is totally separate, and they compile that information differently. So I don't see that it's going to go up. Premiums, I think, may go up. Now, they're saying that the cost of repairs are going up and up and up. That's true. But the designs of the car has changed. The cars are safer, so there's going to be less collisions. The ones that get in collisions, yes, they could be more because we have radars in them that have to be recalibrated, lasers. We can't repair a bumper cover anymore because the radars are behind it and it changes the radars as it goes through the bumper cover, cosmetic plastic cover. So our concern is just safety. It was a system, and it had these parts in it, and it was crash tested and engineered many, many times to be able to perform the way it does. So now we don't only have safety systems in a crash, it's the crash avoidance system. So I think Dale had brought up about a crash test where they used one aftermarket part and they replaced it, and the damage on that car on a light impact was like 3 times the cost because airbags went off, and an airbag is a couple $1,000s, and it should not have gone off. So I don't agree with that statement that the premiums are going to go up because we're going to make the insurance companies pay for the OE instead of making the insured pay for the OE. And there are many insurance companies on the market now, local ones, that are competing. And they don't use or pass on this cost to consumers. So I don't think that's a valid reason. The other point I wanted to address also is on the warranty. Initially, when this bill was passed, it dealt with more mechanical parts, because mechanical parts are the parts that are warranted on a new vehicle. There's no warranty on the crash worthiness or the airbag timing on the vehicle. This is a safety system. It's about how it's going to perform in an adverse accidental situation. So all the terminology for the warranties, it shouldn't apply to this, because if the manufacturer takes the car out of warranty in 3 years, that car still has a safety system. You know, so that's why we just recommended, and that's why we just changed it that way. They're never going to require, OEMs will never require, because they cannot require you. They don't own the car anymore. They can only recommend. If that car does have an aftermarket part and it is in a crash and somebody dies, and there is an aftermarket part on that vehicle, then is that the excuse then for the manufacturer to say, well, it's not our system. You modified the system. Therefore, we're not going to be responsible for it, because they don't know. So the warranty issue, I think, is something that's different, because these laws were passed when there were no safety systems on the car. It dealt mainly with mechanical things. Radiators, hoses, brake pads, you know, mechanical components. What we're dealing with now is a safety system. That's our concern. And I don't want to see the day when, well, we should have done it. We should have passed it. Now somebody loses their legs or somebody's dead. Or the airbag goes off in the passenger seat when it's not supposed to go off because a child's in it. It's dangerous. That's just from a person that's been in this industry for a long time. I've looked at collision damage cars my whole life. This is just actual experience that I've had and I've seen, and from what I've read. So I've read a lot of things on this, because the liability comes back to me when I fix that car. That's why we would never put on an aftermarket part. We just do not. Because I'm not going to be responsible for what happens to that system if it doesn't perform properly. I'm sure I may be going off track here, but
thank you.
Did I answer?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I do have a follow-up, by the way. So you just said that warranties don't warrant safety.
They may warrant a component in the safety system.
Okay.
So
if that component is damaged, then
yes,
that component should be replaced with the recommended component.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
So what's the problem?
In that situation, all the computer components and the sensors on the safety systems are not aftermarket. Those are not the parts we're talking about. The parts that we're talking about.
Okay, so what are you talking about then when you're talking about safety? If those are not aftermarket parts, we're not talking about those parts, which don't deal with safety.
Right. So what we're talking about more is the body, or what's called crash parts, that are on the car.
Okay.
These are the hoods, the bumpers, the fenders, things that make up the front of the car, as well as reinforcement bars, radiator supports that make up inner structural panels. So when the car is involved in an accident, all these components work together. They do a frontal, and each piece absorbs or doesn't absorb. The damage and the energy forces have to come into the car. It's engineered and designed to run that energy up the windshield, over the roof, down through the floor pan, and out the back, to protect the the passenger compartment so they don't get hurt. And it has to do with the timing of the airbags for the passenger and all of this stuff. So when you change components, and now the metal, say in one piece, is not the same as the original one, we don't even know on an.
Okay, so we're talking about warranted though, right? We're talking about warranties, and you're saying that that it could void a warranty if it's not used.
Not necessarily, because the.
No, but you said that.
Yeah, so it could. If you use a component that is warranted, then yes, it would void the warranty. But if you're using components that are not necessarily warranted, then no. it wouldn't void the warranty. It wouldn't void the warranty. But the OEMs, the manufacturers, do not warrant the what happens when the car's in an accident and the airbags go off. So that's my point.
Thank you, Chair.
The warranty is not part of it.
Members, we have a lot. We could, I think, talk about this till the cows go home. Okay, Ray, come on up. This is going to be the final question. If you can please make it brief. Absolutely. I just have the same question. Are non-OEM parts safe?
By all testing that has been conducted, absolutely, based on the fact that no lawsuit exists where accident, injury, or death has occurred, absolutely. And there is something that needs much clarification, which will address the warranty versus insurance paid repair issue. Warranty has nothing to do with insurance paid repairs. Warranty covers defects on that particular part. So once that vehicle is involved in an accident, that part is damaged, your warranty is null and void. So this has nothing to do with warranties. And that is the problem we have here. They're misleading you to believe that these parts will impact your warranty. But do remember, in this bill, it states these are for insurance paid repairs. And your warranty is null and void once that part is damaged.
Thank you.
Ray, if you've been fighting this for 30 years, how come your hair is black?
I could make a joke, but I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to shift gears and drive on to the next bill. Thank you, folks, everyone, for joining us. Up next, we have House Bill 1966. First up, we have DCCA RICO.
We're still talking about body parts.
I've been doing this a while. My hair is gray.
Okay.
Good morning. Good morning, Daria.
Good morning. Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Daria Goto on behalf of the Regulated Industries Complaints Office, or RICO. Hawaii has over 7,000 licensed massage therapists actively contributing to the health and wellness of the state's residents every day. However, there are some who practice unlicensed massage or engage in illicit activities under the guise of licensed massage. House Bill 1966 seeks to exempt individuals engaging in foot, hand, and outer ear manipulation from the existing licensing law. While RICO recognizes there may be legitimate practitioners who want to be able to practice in this limited area, RICO is concerned that allowing individuals to operate or advertise in without a license in some areas that are currently covered by the massage law will give unscrupulous individuals an opportunity to engage in massage activity under the guise of allowable activity. RICO believes unlicensed massage activity is damaging not only to the licensed practice of massage, but also to the public in general, and respectfully requests an exemption be approached with caution to ensure enforcement in this area is not affected. If the committee is inclined to move the measure forward, RICO would request clarification on whether advertising provisions that are currently in the massage chapter would be imposed on the exempted practitioners, and if the provisions in the bill would require massage therapy be practiced only in licensed massage therapy establishments. Whether or not that requirement would also apply to the exempted practice. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm available to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you. Up next, we have the Board of Massage Therapy, Carol Kramer. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Carol Kramer, the Executive Officer for the Board of Massage Therapy, is currently at a Board of Massage Therapy meeting, which is going on right now. So the board is discussing this particular measure. Just to let you know that back in 2008 at a board meeting, that board had confirmed that reflexology has always been considered massage therapy according to the definition. But anyway, they are discussing this measure today. Just wanted to provide some comments. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Tamara Wilcox in support, Stephanie Markham. Would you like to testify?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. We received your testimony. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I agree with what they've said about massage therapy, and I have been practicing, it's called foot zoning, and it's a cousin of reflexology, where I just work on the foot for years and years. And I've never advertised that I'm a massage therapist, and I clarify with my clients that I do not practice massage. I cannot attend a massage therapy school to learn how to do what I do. It's a separate training and completely different than massage therapy training. So that's why I'm supporting the bill, because as a massage therapist, to spend $10,000 to go to massage school to learn how to work on someone's back, where I get a week of training on the foot, isn't equivalent to the 9 months of training I got just on the foot specific. I also train people how to do this as well. I'm certified with the state of Utah, who has a organization in place, and my school and my training follows their guidelines and rules for what is required to have people be in good standing with this. So I'm in strong support of it, so that many more zoners can and foot reflexologists can do this, specifically those who just want to work on the hands and feet and not anything else. And I do agree, though, that it's not massage, and it needs to be clarified that we're not providing massage treatments. It's a specific kind of what would you call it? A specific practice that's separate from massage. But right now, there's no place for us. We don't have anywhere we can say, at a chiropractor's office, we have a local chiropractor in our town who would love to have a reflexologist there or a foot zoner there, but because there's no place for us, it's hard for us. We don't want to be outside of the law. So I'm supporting it, and many of my clients as well. Hopefully you got their support because they love foot zoning and it's helped them and blessed their lives. So I'm in support of it.
Thank you, Stephanie. We have Audrey Hyde in support.
Foot massage.
Olivia Tufaga in support. June Pearl in support. Missy Alyssa Smith in support. Heather Francis in support. Jennifer Orton in support. Wow, I'm sorry, we have about 10 more individuals who testified in support. If any one of you are here, instead of me going through the list of names, why don't you come on up?
I'm Carol.
You're Carol.
Carol.
Yeah.
We have your testimony.
What's your last name? My name is Carol Fenga, Feinga, and I'm in support of this bill 1966, and because I'm a recipient of foot zoning, and I've been doing it for 8 years and have had this healing methodology in my life. I would encourage all of you to try it. It's pretty healthy. So I urge you to please support this bill to passing.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anyone else here? Come on up. If you could come on up, state your name and your position on the bill.
My name is Destiny Holland, and I am in support of...
Ty Holland?
No, that's my husband. He too is in support of this bill.
Fair. Thank you. Thank you, Destiny.
Yes. Okay. And, you know, I'm in support of a lot of different natural, homeopathic, therapeutic practices. Massage therapy, lomi lomi. This is just another alternative to that, foot zoning. I became a foot zoner because I had a pinched nerve, and the instant that she became my instructor, Stephanie Markham, that you just heard her testimony, but the instant she worked on me, I could actually feel the parts of the body that she was working on. And she was only working on my foot, but I felt her working on my shoulders, hips, and so forth. So I knew it was something that worked for me. And the reason why I'm in such strong support of this is because there are so many different modalities that is utilized during this practice, which is a combination of pressure point, energy, and just a lot of, different modalities that can help to push and drain and move things along in the body system just by working on the foot itself. So I've learned the practice, And I have, people that come to us to help them along emotionally and physically, and I have seen changes in them, and their lifestyle has changed for the positive. But I support this bill because of those, because it's made such a positive difference in their lives. So,
thank you, Mrs. Solomon. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on House Bill 1966? Come on up. Good morning.
My name is Doreen Alutu, and I'm in support of the bill.
You got your testimony. We have your testimony.
Okay. I have gone and done different, or like massage therapy. I feel it's totally different. I don't even like to do have a massage done on me. That I'm just one of those kind of people. But I find that having a foot zone is something I just take off my whatever I'm wearing, and that is something that works for me. Yes, my shoes, my slippers, whatever I'm wearing for the day. And I'm very sensitive to medication, so that's not a route that I like to go more towards because of that. And so I'm just in support of it, and I found that it has helped me a lot, and it's something that I also share with my family in the sense of telling them it's a good thing to do as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on House Bill 1966? Members, any questions? Vice Chair.
Stephanie?
Yes.
No, I'm just. So I'm just on this. You support this bill, but it says over here, perform services described under paragraph for clients who remain fully clothed from shoulders to the knee.
Yes.
Is that a burqa or something?
The purpose of that is we only work on the hands and feet.
No, I understand that, but is that something that should be in the bill?
Not necessarily.
Because my daughter, what she wears, she doesn't cover from shoulders to
so you're saying like short shorts when so maybe the wording is wrong. I think the purpose of the wording is to make sure that it's clear that people are fully clothed when they come to us.
So maybe fully clothed, period.
Yeah, maybe that would be a better wording for that.
Okay. And then the other comment
they do work like up to this, so I think that's maybe why they said to the knee, because sometimes you work just like right in this area.
Okay. So if you do this particular service or treatment, you are not allowed, because you're not licensed, you can't touch any place else.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
you can't touch the person's shoulder or back.
Yeah, so it's only hands and feet. So like some of my clients who've had amputations, I will do the hand and the foot. But typically we, in ours, we just mostly work on the foot. But yeah, both the hands and foot. But some people do the ears, and I think that's why they have, does it have the ears in there as well?
So when somebody has an amputation, you do their hands, but it's not there.
Oh, on the foot, if they have a foot amputation.
I'm only kidding. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Steph.
Stephanie also have a question. It does include outer ears. But one of the points that DCCA brought up was whether you should be able to practice in a licensed massage establishment or not. I wanted to hear your opinion.
Since we aren't massage therapists, I would think there would have to be a specification that we are not a massage therapist. So if the massage therapy place has a different modalities that you could clearly say this is a reflexologist or a foot zoner versus a massage therapist, I think it would be fine. But yeah, I wouldn't say in a huge, unless there was a clarity that we are not massage therapists, we probably wouldn't work in a massage therapy place. Yeah, for instance, my friend who's a chiropractor, he would specify this isn't massage that you're coming to. He has a massage room, and then you have a foot zoning room. So it would be a separate, they'd be clearly separated, if that makes sense. You'd have to go to the massage person to get a massage, go to the foot zoner to get a foot zone. So I think they could practice in it if they were clear.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Members, any other further questions?
I got a quick one for DCCA.
Sure.
Daria, if you could. Hi, thanks for coming.
Yes.
Under our current licensing protocol, do we recognize training outside of the state of Hawaii?
You know, I'm going to ask Celia Suzuki from Professional Vocational Licensing. Rico handles the enforcement piece on the other end. I do believe that the board would recognize schooling from other accredited schools, whatever is required in the chapter for licensing. So it's not going to be. I don't believe it's limited to a Hawaii school as long as the school is accredited and recognized by the Hawaii board.
Okay, well, then I have a follow-up question. So there's a foot reflexology place on King Street. So is that a massage licensed establishment or?
Under the current law, the definition of massage includes any method of treatment of the superficial soft parts of the body, and the Hawaii board has opined that a license is required to engage in reflexology. So if the establishment is not licensed, then they are engaged in unlicensed activity, and any therapists who may be performing services within there would also be required to have a license.
Okay. So was her answer correct? Okay.
Chicken.
I thought that.
Thank you, members. Any further questions? Moving on, House Bill 1995. First up, we have DBED.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us.
My foot is sore.
Good morning. Welcome to DBED, Bert.
I'll massage your ear. Sorry, I can't do anything about your foot. Good morning, Chair and Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Bert Lum. I'm here representing DBED and the proxy for Director Salaveria, and of course I'm the strategy officer for broadband. And I am in opposition to HB 1995.
We have your testimony. We have the testimony.
Yeah,
thank you. We have Ani Menon from Hawaiian Telecom.
Good morning, Chair O'Neill. Excuse me, Vice Chair Choi and committee members. Hawaiian Telecom stands on its testimony.
Thank you. Providing comments. We have Spectrum. Mr. Nyong'o. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Nyong'o here on behalf of Charter Communications, also Spectrum. We have our written testimony. Just to keep it real short, we do support an open internet. At this time, we don't believe House Bill 1995 is necessary. If there's any direction, it should come out of Congress and to allow whatever time they need to pass down through all the states so that it's uniform. I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have up next Americans for Democratic Action, Mr. John Bickle. In support, CompTIA, Kelly Hitt. In opposition, CTIA, Jerry Keegan. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. Blake Bashir on behalf of CTIA, the Wireless Association. You have our written testimony, so I will just briefly summarize. We unfortunately do not support this legislation. We don't think that it is necessary at this time. We would prefer that the federal government continue to take a look at this. The rollback we know is concerning to many people, but there needs to be some clarification on the things that it did not do. It still requires the transparency. The FTC still has jurisdiction and can prosecute for antitrust and or for unfair deceptive trade practices. And moreover, the FCC order also preempts state and localities from taking specific action. I'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the Progressive Democrats of Hawaii, Aaron Fernandez. In support, AT&T, Bob Bass. In opposition, we have some. That's the end of my list. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on House Bill 1995? Members, any questions? Thank you. our final bill on this 9 a.m. agenda, House Bill 2060. First up, we have Zelia Suzuki, DCCA.
Good morning. Just comments again from DCCA. The Board of Chiropractic Examiners did have a discussion on this measure at its most recent meeting, and they are in support of the name change. The other boards are still have not, they have scheduled meetings, but they have not discussed the measure as yet, but they will be doing so in the very near future. So,
Okay, thank you. We have the Hawaii Dental Hygienists Association, Ellie Kelly Miyashiro. Good morning.
Good morning. As mentioned, I'm Ellie Kelly Miyashiro. I'm the Regs and Practice Chairperson for the Hawaii Dental Hygienists Association. You have our testimony. I just wanted to make just the suggestion clear that we are suggesting that for the Board of Dental Examiners, the name be changed to Board of Dentistry and Dental Hygiene, as opposed to what you have it now as Dentistry and Dental Hygienists. So both, it's two professions. Dental hygiene is the profession, dentistry is the profession. The way you have it now, it looks like dentistry is the profession, dental hygienist is the person. So just so it's congruent. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Pressler Chang, in support. Diane Brucado, in support. Jeraine Ignite. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
I submitted a petition of a lot of names. I know you're not going to call them out, but I want to thank the webmaster because I had a hard time trying to post my testimony. But we're in support, and same as what Ellie was saying, we want the name change from Board of Dental Examiners to Board of Dentistry and Dental Hygiene, not hygienists. I think that would represent us more, as appropriately reflects our profession. And also, the members of the board are not required to act as examiners. The last board exam was conducted in 2005. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for the list of my testifiers. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on House Bill 2060? Members, any questions? If not, we'll recess for decision making. Back here on the 9 a.m. agenda, the Interstate Commerce Committee, for the purpose of decision making. First up, we have House Bill 1618. There are a number of amendments we're going to take on this one. The first is we're going to strike out everything that has any mention of residency. There's a mention of 5 years and 10 years. We'll strike all that out. We'll also be striking out Part E, the protection of the public. It sounds like that's already in their rules. There was the 1 point of 5 specialty contractors, some that should hold a general contractor's license and some that shouldn't. For this, I'd like to continue this discussion. What I'd like to do is make the following amendments. We're going to have, of those 5 specialty contractors, 2 will be solely specialty contractors who may be allowed to have their general contractor's license. 3 shall be specialty contractors who do not hold a general engineering or general contractor's license. I realize there's a shortage of folks who may fit that bill, but for the time being, I'd like to continue this and see if in fact there are willing and able folks to serve on the board. We're going to defect the date to July 1 and 3000 and make technical and non-substantive amendments. Members, are there any questions? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Chair's recommendation is pass on amendments. Chair and Vice Chair votes aye. Controller. Aye. Fukumoto. Aye. Ito. Aye. Lopresti. Aye. Onishi. Aye. Tokioka. Excuse. Whitson. Aye. Ward. Excused. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Up next, we have House Bill 1620. We are going to strike or recommend it and keep this bill as the law currently is. However, it's undoubtedly there's a lot of discussion that can go on about this topic surrounding safety, surrounding insurance, surrounding the warranties. As a result, I'd like to add a task force to this bill. It'll be led by the DCCA. It'll be chaired by DCCA. It'll include 2 members with background in insurance. It'll include 2 members from the local car repair industry. And it'll include 1 representative from the non-OEM parts manufacturers. We're going to ask them to write us a report 20 days prior to the 2019 session on those topics of vehicle safety, insurance premiums, and manufacturer's warranty. We're going to defect the date to 7/1/3000 and make technical and non-substantive amendments. Members, any questions? Any comments? Not Vice Chair for the vote.
Chair's recommendation is passed with amendments. Those that excuse absences of Tokioka and Ward. Are there any no's? Any reservations? Reservations. I didn't call reservations yet, you know. And the rest vote aye.
Being proactive.
Okay. Your recommendation is adopted. Chair.
Thank you, members. House Bill 1966. We are going to require that these folks who would be exempt from licensure follow the advertising requirements as suggested by DCCA. We're also going to include that they do not have to be necessarily in massage establishments. We're going to change this description from shoulders to knees to just simply fully clothed. We're going to defect the dates to July 1, 3000 and make technical and non-substantive amendments. Members, any comments? Vice Chair for the vote.
The Chair's recommendation is passed with amendments going to excuse absences of Tokioka and Ward. Are there any notes? Over here. Notes. For Representative Ito. Any other notes? Any reservations? The rest vote aye. The recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Next up, we have House Bill 1995. This is the one relating to broadband internet access. We're gonna strike on page 7, section A, and we're gonna incorporate DBED asked not to be in charge of any sort of task force. So instead, is Mr. Randy Iwase here?
PUC?
As a result, we're going to put this under PUC since this.
When you don't attend a meeting, you get
since this bill does specifically ask for some PUC oversight. We're going to defect the date to July 1, 3000, make technical and non-substantive amendments. Members, any comments?
Excellent.
Okay. And Vice Chair for the vote.
Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Voting to excuse the absence of Tokyo Current Ward. Are there any no's? Any reservations? So let's vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair. And finally, House Bill 2060. This was the relating to boards. We're going to defect the date to 7/1/3000. Make technical and non-substantive amendments. I will hope. I see Celia out there. There are a couple pieces of testimony that have different takes on what the exact name for the dentistry is. So I hope you take a look at that. But let's keep this moving. Defect date, tech amendments. Members, any comments? Vice Chair for the vote.
Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Voting to excuse the absence of Tokyo Current Ward. Are there any no's? Any reservations? The rest vote aye. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. We have an 11 a.m. agenda as well. Thanks for sticking with us, and we're adjourned. agenda. This is the Committee on Interstate Commerce. Next Wednesday, January 1st, 11 a.m., conference room 429. We have 4 bills on this agenda. Thank you, members, for sticking around this morning with us. First, we have House Bill 2257. Our first testifier is DCCA. Good morning.
Hi, morning. Morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Iris Ikeda. I'm the Commissioner of the Financial Institutions, and thank you for hearing this bill. We are in support of this bill. I just wanted to point out a couple things about this particular measure. As you probably know, this extends the Money Transmitter Act statute to apply to specifically let everyone know that we have jurisdiction or authority over virtual currency. We are specifically trying to authorize what we've heard from these companies, which is to allow for like-kind virtual currency to be the acceptable permissible investments, which is the amount of money, so to speak, that companies have to hold in reserve in case the transmissions don't go through. So we have heard that that is really the barrier for these companies to operate in Hawaii. Right now, we only accept cash or something that's like cash. And virtual currency is not like cash. So, we want to just make sure that folks or companies can operate in Hawaii. I just want to note that even though the Money Transmitter Bill, it's fairly recent. It was born in 2008, implemented in 2009, but that was before the virtual currency came into effect. And so, as this industry evolves, we want to make sure that our laws are evolving with it. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. We also have the Department of Attorney General, Ken Takayama or yep. Peter Hamasaki. Good morning, folks.
Good morning. Another uniform law. Okay. No.
HB 2257 is not a uniform law.
I understand.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. I'm Ken Takayama, and with me is Peter Hamasaki. We're commissioners with the State Commission to Promote Uniform Legislation. We simply have comments on HB 2257. We think that Senate Bill 2192, which establishes the Uniform Regulation of Virtual Currency Businesses Act, is a superior means of dealing with the problem that's facing us. Our concern about the H Bill 2257 is that it's trying to stretch a law that was intended mainly for the transmission of money to more than just the transmission of something that is more than just money. Kind of putting a square peg in a round hole. By comparison, Senate Bill 2192 is solely focused on virtual currencies. It gives DCCA very distinct authority and very tailored authority to control certain aspects of the businesses and protect the public interest. Other than that, we'll stand by for any questions you may have.
Just one clarification. It's actually SB 2129.
Sorry.
I know you note that in your testimony. Thank you.
Wait, just Ken, your testimony says does not support. Is it not support or is it comments?
It's comments. Ultimately, it's comments.
That's all the testimony I have for House Bill 2257. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Morning.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Legal Chair. I apologize if our testimony did not get submitted. I'm here on behalf of Coinbase, the largest retailer for virtual currency. We are here in support of the bill. We just wanted to express our appreciation for the legislature towards looking at this complicated issue. In 2017, unfortunately, we were forced to close down our shops, and so
Hawaii remains one of the 2 states that is unable to legally transact in the virtual currency field. And so we support this measure. We support many of the others that are also on the table. We are open to any of those and are available for any discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on House Bill 2257? If not, members, questions? Rep. Woodson.
Thank you. May I please call up DFI and also Mr. Ashiro? So admittedly, I have not had time to kind of scrub this particular proposal, but I just want to make sure that I understand what it's attempting to do in terms of, number one, you're saying that DFI has jurisdiction over this particular new market. I would like to know what that means, and also if the proposal does in fact still try to comport this type of new currency within the money transmitter statutes. And I ask that because, as I understand digital currency and alternate coin currencies, in fact, that you in fact can submit U.S. dollars into an exchange, and then that exchange thereby gives you back a value that is communicated in a digital currency. So it is different from a money transmitter in that there's not a point A to B transaction. One person submits $100 on the other side, then you receive that $100. There's no need for that double collateralization that is required for money transmitters. And I'm just trying to make sure that, in fact, it is at least being considered taken out of that statute, if that makes sense. I don't even think I had my question formed before I started asking it, but if that makes sense, and maybe Mr. Ashiro, if you can respond after the Commissioner does.
Yes, thank you, Representative. I think you are right. I mean, it is trying to fit a square peg through a round hole. Unfortunately, the way that our current money transmitter law is set up, that's the way in which it falls under right now. And so I think the approach of 2257 is to try and figure out how you deal with this in some way. You know, the core question is, in some ways, this looks a little bit more like a security or an investment rather than a transmitter. However, the federal government has not declared that this is a security, and so therefore the states are left to deal with this however they deal with this. Some have done it under money transmitters, some have done a separate registration system, and so you don't have any uniformity across the states. And for us, on behalf of Coinbase, we're just seeking anything that allows us in Hawaii to continue to operate.
Is Coinbase moving to try to have it defined as a security, which puts it through a whole set of other regulations that it has to deal with on the federal side?
I'm not aware of them pushing for that. I know that they're watching it. I don't know if Iris has, or the commissioner has any further updates on that, but I know it's a discussion that's going on because the former securities chair said it should be regulated, but I'm not sure if the current securities chair is of that mindset.
Will they define it like a collectible asset or like a commodity more so, would you say, in terms of the cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or altcoin, whatever you want to?
Right, so I think that it doesn't really fit into that definition also. So I think that both the Securities Commissioner federally and the bank supervisors are struggling with this. Right now it's falling just to the states to determine how it is that you want to, or each state wants to supervise this or not supervise it at all. There are many states, not the majority, there's no plurality anywhere. But there are many states that just say we don't recognize this at all. Buyer beware. There's no consumer protection anywhere. There are states that are doing what we're suggesting, which is to change the permissible investments either as a one-to-one or a percentage of the digital currency plus real cash.
Real cash. That's a good one.
And then, there are others that are saying that, that this is, outside their realm. So, there's no one way of looking at this thing because it is so new. It is acting differently. When it first started out, people were buying merchandise with it. So it was actually going from the consumer to a retailer. Over the past year, it's evolved to looking something like a security where people want to invest all of their retirement in that. Not to buy things. In a couple of states right now, we've seen in the newspapers that people have bought homes with residential homes with this, and the receiver. There's actually one situation that we're aware of right now, that they are disputing the value of the coin because it was transmitted at the high point and it's since dropped, and the receiver of the coin says that they didn't get the real value. So, that particular state said buyer beware.
That's different. That's very difficult because it takes about 45 days to purchase a home, and that's the currency is actually fluctuating so rapidly to where I don't know how you're going to be able to extrapolate what the actual value is.
And that was the problem.
In a point to sell.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Question, Rep. Tokyo.
Thank you, Chair. So, Iris, on the state side, in this bill, stay because I have a question for you. Sorry. Oh, run away. You're the smartest guy I know, so I'm going to ask you some questions too.
He's trying to escape.
He's turning all red already. In this current bill or bills that are moving, I think to lay things out on the table, there are a lot of people who have gotten involved in the last year or 2 years in Bitcoin and other Ethereum and other types of currency. I'm hearing from your testimony that you want to help those people who want to do it, and buyer beware, which I know I've sat in and heard people say they want to put their life savings in, and some people who were selling the Bitcoin said, I wouldn't do that if I were you. But in this bill, are there safeguards as far as the state is concerned that if we are allowing this to happen, that and something does go wrong, that this consumer can't come back at the state?
Right. So one of the things that we're proposing in the bill is to have a consumer disclosure, and we want to tell or let folks know, that consumers know that bad things could happen if you are buying this particular virtual currency. You could be hacked, you could lose your wallet. We have people who have lost their phones, lost their laptops or computers. They somehow wiped their hard drive, and once you lose that key, it's so secure that you can't get it back.
Right.
So people are saying they've lost millions of dollars because of that. So we don't protect against that, and we don't protect against that for any of our money transmitters.
Okay.
We would also, because it would fall under the money transmitters program that we currently have, we would examine these companies. We are asking for one more type of audit before they get an application from us or get a license from us.
And what would that license cost for them to do?
The same as all of our other money transmitters. So it's not more or less.
Okay.
It's the same, and then the annual fee would be based on the number of transactions, just like for our other money transmitters. Right.
Okay, so the question I have for you, Blake, is there are a few bills moving, and the chair is hearing it, so I'm sure he's wanted to hear the testimony. But is there any particular language of other bills that you would like to see in this bill to help your client and the protection of the consumers on our end? Because we're all here to do that. We all want to make sure that, it's free enterprise, people can do what they want, but our job is to protect them as well. So is there anything that in this bill we could add that would strengthen that on both sides?
Just to answer your question directly, I think page 21 of the bill is very specific, getting to the commissioner's point about the notice that's required to be given out to consumers in terms of what everything this is not. It gives you a very long warning of what it's not, and please be careful and all this stuff. And we're not having any problem with that. So I think that's probably one of the most express consumer protections I've seen in all the various measures.
This would be the first.
Yeah. And then So there's one House bill that's currently before you. There's 4 Senate bills that are on that side. They're hearing 2 of them on Friday. One of them is the uniform provision, and the other one is the counterpart to this. And so for us, I think there's just a lot of different moving parts, and we think that a continued conversation as this continues to move and it'll morph and be put together and hopefully not be a Frankenstein, but hopefully come out with something that's very robust is something that we would be hopeful for at the end.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Blake. Thank you, Iris.
Vice Chair. Iris, you can sit down, Blake and Ken. Just a quick question for you. Is virtual currency legal tender in Hawaii?
It's not legal tender anywhere in the United States.
Okay. Can Hawaii make a determination unilaterally to make a legal tender, or is that a federal type of thing?
It's a federal thing.
Okay, real good. Ken, there's seems to be 3 approaches right now. Your Model Act, and I've got the New York law, and then of course Iris's money transmitter section here. My question to you is, did you compare your Model Act, okay, to the New York law?
In answer to your question, I personally have not, but I believe the drafting committee of the Uniform Law Commission did a lot of comparisons because of a fair amount of the uniform measure, I believe, was stemmed at least.
So did they go from New York to your commission, or commission to New York?
With the drafting committee process, you have participants coming in from all over and from all kinds of different professions, businesses, backgrounds, and so forth.
Okay. Iris, when you read, have you read the New York law?
Yes.
Okay, and then and the uniform law?
Yes.
Okay, so of the 3, don't you find that a little bit more comprehensive than 2257?
Well, the New York law, that has not been adopted anywhere else except for in New York.
Right.
We've discussed it, at our various Conference of State Banking Supervisors meetings, which are the bank supervisors across the nation. No one has adopted that model.
Except for New York.
Except for New York.
Which is a huge state.
Yes. So they have, a devoted staff that just does that. And they can afford that. We, of course, cannot. And actually, no other state, even California, cannot afford that. The uniform laws, we did look at that. We did spend a fair amount of time looking at that. We actually sent a staff member out to the Uniform Laws Commission to visit with them and learn more about what their thought process was behind their proposal. We did seriously look at that. One of the big things was that we believe that, one, it's creating a whole new program.
Right.
There's no staff for that. That would be separate and apart from money transmission, right? That's what they're proposing.
But if you had a staff and you had a budget, wouldn't the model law or the New York law be more comprehensive than what you're proposing in 2257?
Right. So the other thing is that in the model law, as we discussed with some of the commissioners, was that there are 3 tiers of licensure, I guess you could call it in the broadest sense. One is permitted unlicensed activity, one is just registration, and then one is full licensure. We don't have any supervision over the permitted unlicensed activity. They can report to they're self-reporting about whether or not, which category they fit under. I would say that most people are going to say they are all doing unpermitted, unlicensed activity, or permitted, unlicensed activity. We would have no way to determine.
But if the virtual currency was categorized as a security, then you would have jurisdiction over it, right? And the next question is, could the states do that unilaterally, or would that have to be some kind of federal preemption to categorize virtual currency as a security, so they can suck in all the security laws?
Right. So we have a securities division, which I'm sure would be happy to look at that.
No, they won't.
They would be as happy as we were.
Yeah. Okay. I can understand. Now, on this consumer disclaimer, I'm the kind of guy that smokes cigar and looks at the disclaimer and says you're going to get cancer. So this is a pretty comprehensive. Do you think this would be effective at all?
Well, we believe that this should be placed on their webpage. Most of it is done through the web, right? And we think that this is the best disclosure that we could come up with. There are other disclosures that other states have that are on. If you want to transmit, let's say in North Carolina, the North Carolina banking department has required virtual currency companies to put a disclosure on that website.
Okay, last question on page 7 on 2257.
Yes.
Line 15. If I change that word volume to value, would that be more in line with consumer protection since the value of Bitcoin fluctuates so much?
Well, it could be $1, right?
Right? It could be zero, right?
Right. So if they...
At the time of transmission, they have to have the equal value and hold that value. That could be a little bit more of a protection, right?
It could be. I mean, we're not totally wedded to any of the language, and we certainly welcome, you to make some changes.
Okay.
Part of it is, the volume and the value will play into how much the fees are going to be.
Yeah, and the New York law kind of makes it mixed. Yeah, they kind of want value more than volume. Okay, thank you, Chair. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Members, any other questions? Not moving on. Thank you, folks. Up next, we have House Bill 2346. First up, we have Commissioner Cornito.
Thank you, Chair Ono, Vice Chair Choi, members of the committee. Cornito testifying on behalf of DCC. I'll just summarize my testimony. We're requesting passage of this bill, which would allow the state to require licensure of third-party administrators. We're one of 9 states that do not either regulate or license TPEs. It's based on the NAIC model law, which would provide additional consumer protections and transparencies for TPEs. I'd just like to add and we're requesting an amendment on the surety bond requirement to make it consistent with some of the other language that we have requiring surety bonds. But one of the main reason why we're requesting passage of this TPE is Hawaii, in particular in our health insurers, in the setup of mutual benefit society, the way the setup of mutual benefit societies are, in some of them, mutual, but not all, a lot of the responsibilities and operations run through the TPEs, and as opposed to the mutual benefit society as an insurer. And so providing a licensure would provide us regulatory oversight and authority over monitoring the activities of the TPEs. And so that's really one of the main reasons why we're requesting passage of this bill. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Paul Kaiser from Hawaii Western Management Group in opposition. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on House Bill 2346? Not members, questions?
Commissioner, it's good that we have this kind of a bill, TPA. Does this include ASO or administration services only?
Generally, I would say not. I mean, when you say ASOs, I mean, the TPEs would have to be acting on behalf of an insurer. And so that's what the scope of this bill is. ASOs then is more associated with like PEOs, professional employment organizations, and the services that they may or may not provide.
The reason why I ask that is my research on self-insured insurance, which is now 29 states, they recommend either to have TPAs or third-party administrator or ASO, administration services only. Why are we not including ASO so that we have the flexibility to hire either a TPA or ASO?
Well, As you point out, if an entity self-insures and hires a TPA, that entity is providing insurance to its organization, and the TPA is the one that's administering, either collection of premiums or payment of benefits, claims administration. And so that's where, because it's an insurance entity or entity that is self-providing insurance, essentially, that's where I think it's also important to have licensure of the TPAs. In the case of ASO, if they're crossing the line into the definition of TPA, then they may have to be licensed as a TPA. But specifically, if an entity just provides ASO services, it might not necessarily fall within the scope. It comes down to, is the ASO doing claims administration, claims review, claims payment? In my understanding of what ASOs, they don't necessarily do that insurance aspects of it. So if they cross over to doing it, then they might fall under the definition of TPAs and have to be licensed as a TPA.
Is there a possibility we can include ASO only as part of TPA?
Again,
try again.
Yeah. I guess the reverse answer is if they start handling claims administration or collection of premiums on behalf of a self-insured or an entity that's providing insurance, then they would be required to be licensed as a TPA. So in a sense, they'll be folded in.
So they will be folded as TPAs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is Mr. Paul Kaiser in?
He was not here today.
No. Okay.
Members, any other further questions? Commissioner, I have some questions. I know there's model legislation by the NAIC, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. I understand you were recently elected the Secretary-Treasurer of this national organization.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I have some more questions.
I'm up for the kill.
Nay.
Butter him up. Okay. The Hawaii Western Management Group did cite this NAIC model legislation, and they included a copy of it in their testimony. It is dated to October 2011. But there were 4 or 5 differences between the proposed bill we have today and this model legislation, and I wanted to run some of these differences between you to get your input as we move this bill along. I recognize you may not have the testimony, but let me, if you want to get back to us at some point, I'll just run through them. If you have any comments now, go ahead. So the first one is that under this current bill, the documents and records in the administrator's possession may be protected by the attorney-client privilege, but they will no longer be privileged in the commissioner's possession. They have some language making a little stricter that these records shall be confidential by law and privileged, although you may still be authorized to use such documents in any regulatory or legal action brought as a part of the commissioner's official duties. They just want to protect their records and documents.
I understand that concern, and we'll take a look at it, but we generally, the starting point, if it's privileged communication, we honor that privilege. But that being said, in the setup with a TPA and what happened in a recent insolvency we're dealing with, a lot of the information actually was on what I would consider the TPA. Especially the financial information, the claims information. So the ability for us to get that information and to rely on the accuracy or inaccuracy of the information, we would have to use that in any regulatory action proceeding, especially on financial solvency. So we'll take a look at that issue, but at this point, I can't agree to not being allowed to use that information in a court proceeding.
Okay. Afterwards, I do hope you take a look at this testimony. I just want to point in, although there are 4 or 5 suggested amendments by them, there's one more I want to bring to your attention. The bill that we're considering today places licensing requirements on individuals who adjust claims for the administrator. even though the NAIC Model Act imposes no such requirement. So this Hawaii Western Group, Hawaiian Management Western Group, would strike the requirement that administrators employ or has contracts with individuals or adjust claims for the administrator, that these folks shall first be licensed.
Yeah, well, again, we'll take a look at it. I mean, in the general insurance law, if they're an employee of an insurance company, then they don't need to be licensed as an adjuster. So we'll take a look at that. But again, the TPE is a separate entity apart from an insurance company. Like, for example, in HMAA is the insurer. The Hawaii Western Management Group is the TPE. That's separate and apart and has contracts with HMAA. So.
Okay.
We'll take a look. Thank you.
Go there, save some trees.
That's your testimony.
Yeah, that's a testimony.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any further questions? Okay, Rep. Cachola.
Do you have a list of companies that are self-insured on their health?
I have to. I think Department of Labor actually is the one that authorized the self-insure on the prepaid. So we'll double check on that. But we can provide the list.
Yeah, because one of those is like Verizon is self-insured on healthcare and also IBEW.
Yeah,
that's what I heard.
The self-insured, the self-insured part, for the most part, the jurisdiction falls under Department of Labor and Industrial Relations because they have to be in compliance and meet the prepaid requirements.
So it's not within your purview.
Not specifically.
But you can get us
we can provide a list.
Because so that we know exactly what we are trying to do when we want to build that I have introduced to save a lot of money. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And if you can provide any documents to me, and I'll disseminate to the rest of the committee. Thank you.
Submit it to the Chair. I'll get a copy.
Thank you. Members, any final questions? Thank you, members. House Bill 2449. First up, we have Lisa Kim, DCCA.
2449.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. My name is Lisa Kim. I'm with the DCCA. And with regards to this measure with doing a feasibility study for the deployment of broadband service to senior centers, we had an opportunity to speak with the primary introducer, and we would like to change our testimony, basically saying that we're in support of this measure and we'll be happy to work on this and provide the information necessary. During our discussion, we also spoke, when we were speaking with the Representative Evans, she kind of thought that we should loop in the Office of Aging and to get their information because they deal with the target group. So she recommended that we ask this committee to make that amendment so that we work with the Office of Aging. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. That's, I'm sorry, I have Melody Aduha in support. That's all the written testimony I have. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this matter? House Bill 2449. Members, questions? Finally, we have House Bill 2571. First up, we have Rico.
Good morning again.
Good morning again.
Vice Chair, committee members. Daria Goto, again appearing on behalf of the Regulated Industries Complaints Office, or RICO. I think RICO is here testifying on a theme today, which is just offering comments, enforcement-related comments on this bill, which provides an exemption for a category called watch person under the private detective and guard law. As the committee is aware, RICO does enforcement activity for unlicensed guard activity, oftentimes approaching individuals who may be working in the field. We are concerned that creating an unregistered type of individual who can practice will complicate enforcement actions. As individuals are approached in the field, they will most likely indicate that they are acting as an unregistered watch person. Additionally to that, we had a couple of other notes in our testimony. We're just a little unclear from the language what would happen if a watch person fails to submit required documentation after the 60-day exemption period has run. It's also unclear from the bill if an individual can claim the 60-day exemption more than once. I'm available to answer any questions the committee may have, and thank you again for the time to testify this morning.
Thank you. We have Kenneth Chang, Chairperson of the Board of Private Detectives. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Mr. Chang was unable to be here. I am Charlene Tamanaha, the Executive Officer for the board. And we thank you for the opportunity to testify on House Bill 2571. The board opposes this measure. This creates a subcategory of guards called watch persons. I think it allows them to work during the 60-day period, but they must meet it within 60 days. It's difficult to try and track that or to monitor. We would have no way of knowing. And it also allows someone to work without actually being vetted by the board. And this is a primary concern. The impracticality for licensing is that at every other profession, no one allows you to practice before you actually have been vetted by the board or the program. This would do so. And I think the board's concern is that these watch persons, how will the public know between a watch person and the guard? They're doing the same thing. It's a subcategory. It's one portion of it, not really clearly defined because property can be in a lot of things. And so they're worried about that. And I think, we'd like the committee to know that we're constantly working with the industry stakeholders to try and improve things. We are getting, we are tied to we've been trying to 7 to 10 days to get an actual application through. When I checked the clerk's office before coming here, she had 4 applications that she had got within the last 2, and maybe 10 on the web, but she's been processing these things. So there's no backlog of applications to be reviewed. So for these reasons, the board opposes this bill. So thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'll be here to happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Danielle Vieira from Jan Guard Hawaii. In support, Frank Comendador, Jan Guard Hawaii. Also in support. That's all the written testimony I have on House Bill 2571. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Members, questions? Rep. Tokioka.
I think, I didn't speak with Representative Buenaventura when she did circulate this bill, but I think you know why she's circulating it. And this is a new company that didn't, as far as I remember last year, submit testimony, and they're talking about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they pay in overtime because of the inability to hire people, which is the same thing, so they're trying to look at a different subcategory. And I know that you and I have met on numerous occasions about this particular thing, and I know you said that you're working with the companies, but they're still frustrated and they're still complaining. So, since this year and last year, is there anything that you can tell us of what you've done to try to help expedite them getting their guards through the training and certified and all of that? Because we're talking about minimum, in most cases, minimum wage paying employees. So what has the board and the department done since then? Since last year?
Yeah. Our online process has also we've been tweaking that, making it better. The ability for people to, if they get sent a deficiency, most hard copy applications, you get sent a deficiency that's snail mail, right? So they have to print it, send it out. With the online capability, they're able to send the notice directly to the applicant. What we have found, and what I've heard from employers, is that the employers help them register. The emails, it's supposed to be the applicant's email. It goes kind of to the employer, but the employer can't open it because it's tied to the employee. So a lot of times we may send a deficiency today and the applicant doesn't open his email. So it lengthens the process that way, but it allows them to, whatever document that is missing, they can just upload it and send it back via the online service. So it's helped. I mean, I think rather than them send it in, then we get it through the mail, then we have to process. So I think that the online process, and we've been trying to tweak things to make it easier for them to update. We would send a notice saying, please go check your MyPayVail account because of the confidentiality of it. But it's them not opening it up, so the employer will call and say, hey, what's happening with this? We sent a deficiency notice, via the email, but we haven't heard anything. But I think that the online process has probably been one of the most things that we've happened. We are also looking at, and the board has allowed, and with the curriculum providers to submit online. Now the law allows them to do so. We heard that Mr. Hilkoleni, who does most of the training curriculum, that he is attempting to do that for the next 4 hours. So I think that will help, although we did tell him it can't be something, because the statute is clear, it has to be something that's interactive, and it would not allow someone to just sit there and go through this, because there needs to be question and answers and discussion. So that's another thing that's...
And those two things have helped, but one of the problems I'm hearing is that a lot of these guards that apply, they don't have an email account. And so if it goes to the employer, which it does, they can't open it, and then they gotta track down Brada or Sister and get them to come in so that they can open the email. So that is the type of stuff that we're dealing with getting the guards started, and if there is a deficiency, letting them know that you gotta complete this and finish that before we can get you in.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we're tied by things that are public and private, and anything to do with an application is private, and so someone else...
But you understand too that a lot of these guys don't have email accounts. So, okay, and I know you're meeting with some of the companies, and hopefully we can continue to massage this thing and figure out, a better way a quicker way of getting people.
Mr. Comenador did come to a board meeting, I think in November, and the board tried to give him recommendations on how he can try and shepherd the application so that he can, keep track of it. And we did offer that, if for his staff person wanted to call and find out the status, we've even put that on the online check to see the status of where your application is been processed, or for executive officer review, board review. So an applicant can go online now and find out what their status is. So I think that has also helped.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Any other further questions, members? If not, we'll recess for decision making. You ready for your moment? For the 11 a.m. agenda, the Committee on Interstate Commerce for the purposes of decision making. First up, we have House Bill 2257. I'm going to turn it over to the Vice Chair for the proposed HD1 changes.
Okay, I just want to thank the Chair for allowing me to work on this very, very important measure. I think Bitcoins are something that we're going to have to regulate. So this is what I would like to recommend. First, of course, defect date is to the Chair's favorite defective date, whatever that is, and any kind of technical amendments we may find. I'd like to add a new section to the bill, simply to add the content of SB 2129. I believe that's your model act in the Senate. Okay, so we'll have two sections to the bill, right? One, the money transmitter section, another section that will put forward the model act, okay? On the original bill, on the section, I'd like to change page 7, line 15, from volume to value. Just a little bit of a change, enough for the chair to remain in control of the bill. I also would like the committee report to reflect for the CPC committee, which is going to go to next, to determine which method would offer the better consumer protection. Because I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, consumer protection. Okay, and with those amendments, Chair,
and of course, technical non-substantive amendments, defect the date 7/1/3000. Any comments, members? If not, thank you, Vice Chair, for the votes.
The Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair votes aye. Cachola. Aye. Fukumoto. Aye. Ito. Aye. Lopresti. Aye. Onishi. Aye. Tokioka. Aye. Woodson. Aye. Ward is excused. Your recommendation is adopted, Chair.
Thank you, members. Up next, we have House Bill 2346. I'd like to give the Insurance Commissioner some time to respond to some of the testimony presented by Hawaii Western Management Group. So we're going to defer decision making on this until our next hearing, which will be Tuesday, February 6th.
Or 6. Oh, you almost got scolded.
Steven, sorry, did you have enough time?
Okay. Moving on, House Bill 2449. Chair's recommendation is to pass. We're going to defect the date and make some technical and non-substantive amendments. For any of you folks who think you might benefit from broadband in senior centers, there will be a blanket no conflict. Yeah. If you want to put a vote.
Excuse me.
Only for seniors.
Only for seniors. So HD1, Chair's recommendation to pass. For the Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, not an excuse absence of Representative Wards. Are there any noes, any reservations? The rest vote aye, and your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. House Bill 2571, the Chair's recommendation is to defer this measure. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.